I never had access in the past under the, I'll call them the Trudeau Liberals. They did not want to speak to us. I couldn't call them. I couldn't have a meeting with them. So we will see if these meetings actually pan out into something. But yeah, I've been very blunt with the public safety minister that the gun buyback program is going to be completely ineffective.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Northern Perspective. We have a very special guest on with us today. He's here to talk about all things crime, gun buyback, violent crime, and perhaps we'll even get into what constitutes trespassing on a premises. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the Toronto Police Association, Clayton Campbell.
Yeah, hey Ryan, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. This is something that we've been trying to set up for a couple of weeks, and schedules haven't aligned, but I'm glad they finally did. So let's get to one of the hot topic issues for Canadians right now. There's a lot of irritation, frustration, anxiety, probably every emotion in between about this gun buyback program that Minister Gary Nandasangri has been rolling out right after he was caught on a secret recording saying that he doesn't even agree with this program. What is your take? What's the take of the Toronto Police Association on this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll say, first of all, in the city of Toronto, we deal with a lot of gun violence. We seized about 700 illegal guns in the city of Toronto last year. And that's the really key point of this, illegal guns. The violence we're seeing in our city is not being caused by hunters, target shooters, gun collectors. It is being caused by violent criminals, gangs, thugs that are out there terrorizing our city. The majority of the guns we seize, about 90%, are sourced directly from the United States. They're illegal. And the other 10%, we may not know where they come from. Serial numbers are removed. If anybody's a gun owner, we'll know sometimes if they're scratched off, it's hard to identify. So the majority are coming from the U.S. And the vast majority of people involved in this criminality are either out on bail, prohibited from owning a firearm, but it's definitely not lawful firearm owners involved in this. So we've been very vocal about it, that this is not going to impact any of the crime we're seeing in the city of Toronto. And in fact, when you're wasting $750 million of taxpayer money, if you just send a portion of that to the city of Toronto, we can find some ways to use that money that would actually keep my members that I represent and the citizens of Toronto safe.
So we have seen a staggering increase in crime since 2015, since the Liberals took office. Is that coincidence, or do you think this is policy related? Why do you think crime has skyrocketed? And I know you can mainly only speak for the municipality of Toronto. Why do you think it skyrocketed?
Well, I'd say for Toronto, there's really, I'd say two things. First, I'll start with the municipality. So they fund our policing service. For many years, we went through the defund movement that we saw in a lot of police services across Canada. So our numbers were drastically cut. We didn't have resources. Over the last year or two, we're seeing a reinvestment in policing. So you're starting to see some really good trends in the city where we're starting to have more police officers out there to keep people safe. So I'll put the municipality to one side. We were in a really bad spot. It's starting to get better. At the federal level, the biggest thing is that we've seen really weak on crime legislation from the Liberal government over the last number of years. Bill C-75, all sorts of other legislation that you're probably aware of that have made it easier for bad guys to be released, to put it in simple terms, and have put bad guys' rights ahead of the rights of victims and the communities that we serve. For many years, and I'll say under the Trudeau Liberals, we lobbied in Ottawa constantly, and we did not have a voice. They really didn't want to hear our input. There's been a bit of a change, I can say that the current Liberal government is listening. We'll see what legislation, you're obviously following what's going on in Ottawa, that there's some legislation pending. So we'll see what that legislation does, if we support it, if it's enough, if it's not enough. But that's been the biggest challenge. And we've had a great relationship with the federal Conservatives over the last number of years, where they have consulted with us We provided written recommendations on laws that could be changed. So I think it's really twofold. We're starting to see improvements in our city, but there needs to be leadership from the federal government to change these laws, to put, again, victims and our communities first and not the bad guys committing these crimes.
The issue with the federal laws, and this is where I think there's a bit of a disconnect, especially between the federal government, the media, and the average Canadian, is when it comes to the police officers on the ground, the officers aren't supposed to be able to decide which laws they enforce and which laws they don't. And when it comes to legislation like Bill C-75, as you suggested, one of the main core issues that the Conservatives have cited in there is the principle of restraint. Do you think that has had a direct impact on the increase in crime across the country, and specifically Toronto? And how do police officers, react to that out of the public view? Are they frustrated by that?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. Bill C-75, which really we have to consider release in simple terms for the public that's listening, to release people as quickly as possible with the least restrictive conditions. Meaning, if you can release them, you have to release them, and you have to release them with the least restrictive conditions in the community. And that really, it ties the hands of my members. Again, we have 8,700 members that are out there trying to keep Toronto safe. So we have to follow the law. And it also applies to judges and justices of the peace. And what's that has caused with Bill C-75 is people that should have been kept in custody and may have been kept in custody in the past being released. And our position on bail is not about minor offenses, people that make mistakes. It's about a small number of really violent individuals involved in illegal firearm offenses, shooting guns, shooting people in the city of Toronto, home invasions, carjackings, that need to be kept in custody. And I've said this often, if someone's in jail, they're not going to take their illegal handgun and go shoot somebody the next day. It's kind of a simple situation. And, I get that the province has a role to play in the municipality, but that's been the biggest reason. And yeah, for my members, they are frustrated. You can imagine, say our gang and gun unit that does complex, expensive investigations, multiple search warrants that are executed, intelligence, surveillance, to arrest these bad guys, to see them out of custody the next day, involved in criminality. But I'm still very proud of them. The members I represent continue to go out and do their part, and now it's time for the federal government to make the changes that are needed to back up the members that are out there, quite frankly, risking their lives to try to keep the citizens of Toronto safe.
And that's a point I want to pick up on, because one of the things that that always crosses my mind, my brother-in-law is a police officer in Toronto as well, is that they risk their lives to apprehend these very dangerous people. So they finally apprehend them, finally put them in cuffs, and then arrest them. Then they're out on the street the next day, potentially going to be coming after those police officers, either defending themselves in the arrest the next time, and it puts the officers' lives in repeated danger. What's the take on that of the Toronto Police Association?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? It's a level of frustration where you go out there and you make these very dangerous arrests. Like I said, literally putting your lives on the line to make these arrests. And I come from a policing family. My dad was a police officer, he's retired. Both of my brothers are members of Durham Regional Police, which is just east of Toronto. And my wife is a detective with the Toronto Police Service. So it's a family affair. Most of my friends are police officers, and they're out there risking their lives to make these arrests, only to see them let out of custody. And the other thing to consider is if you are a witness to these offenses in some of these areas of Toronto, are you going to want to come forward and report this to the police because you know that person you've just reported to the police is back out in your community the next day? And so it not only impacts officers, it impacts witnesses. The cost to the court system is astronomical. It seems a lot cheaper just to take the bad guy and put them in the cage and leave them there instead of having them in and out and in and out and in and out. So there needs to be some changes. The recommendations, which we've both made the same recommendations to the Liberal government. I've met with Sean Fraser, I've met with the public safety minister. We've met with Pierre Poilievre and Larry Brock, who's the Shadow Minister of Justice, and we've told them the same things. There's some simple changes that I think could actually help in keeping the public and the members I represent safe.
Have you had an opportunity to review the private member bill, the Jail Not Bail Act, brought forth by Arvin Canna?
Yeah, we did, and I met with MP Khanna, if I'm pronouncing it right. He's just south of here. Yeah, met with him. We were supportive of the bill. We thought there were very reasonable things in there. We thought they were crafted in a way that could withhold a Supreme Court challenge. We were supportive of it. We were very disappointed that it wasn't supported in Parliament. I get that there's politics going on. So now we have to move on, and we have advocated with Sean Fraser and with the Public Safety Minister, who's an MP here in Toronto, to say, look, listen to what we've said, put this forward. I know the Conservatives have been pretty open about if it's good legislation, we're going to support it. So I hope something gets done, and I get that there's always politics involved, but yeah, I thought the jail not bail was something that would have kept communities safe, and maybe some of that will end up in whatever the Liberals put forward. What I'm hearing is after Thanksgiving.
So, in your conversations with the Public Safety Minister, with the Liberals, has the question come up? Violent crime has increased since 2015. Gun violence has exploded since 2015. Why are you instituting a gun buyback program for Canadians that the Public Safety Minister himself says are law-abiding Canadians in their attempt to curb gun crime? Has that question come up?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, one thing that is really important to me is I say the same thing privately, publicly, that I would say on your podcast, that I'd say anywhere. It's consistent. And so I'd say the Public Safety Minister and I, the last conversation we had, and I'm able to speak to him on the phone, I do have access to him, was we clearly are never going to agree on the gun buyback program. So we had, I've made it very clear to him it's a waste of money. He's an MP in Toronto. He knows how challenging funding public safety is. Right now, we're in the budget process for public safety. The mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, is trying to figure out how we're going to pay for all this. And I'm sure if you said, here's 10% of that $750 million, she could use it in a lot of different ways. So I've parked that with him, to be quite honest. I've made my opinion very well known. It's going to be ineffective. It's a waste of money. And then moved on to say, listen, you need to now change some of the legislation in the criminal code. You need to look at the parole system. You need to look at the Youth Criminal Justice Act. So we've kind of just agreed to disagree on that and move forward on it on other things. And for me, it has been a change. Like I said, I never had access in the past under I'll call them the Trudeau Liberals. They did not want to speak to us. I couldn't call them. I couldn't have a meeting with them. So we will see if these meetings actually pan out into something. But yeah, I've been very blunt with the Public Safety Minister that the gun buyback program is going to be completely ineffective.
Now, the OPP has come out and said that they're not going to be assisting with the, reclamation of these weapons. Toronto Police, I believe, is of the same opinion. Is that correct?
So I don't know with the Chief of Toronto, Myron Demke. We speak almost daily. I'm not aware of any plan in place. I think I would be safe in saying that I have no idea how or who would confiscate these firearms. In the city, we are barely keeping our heads above water with the crime we're seeing, and to divert resources away from responding to calls for service, taking away from gang and gun investigations or homicide investigations or child abuse investigations to, round up lawful guns from lawful gun owners I don't know how that would happen. So I'm not aware of any plan in place, and we will see what, obviously, the Chief of Police, who's responsible for operations, what conversations they have, but I'm not aware of any plan currently for the City of Toronto.
So let's assume that the quote-unquote pilot of this that has started in Cape Breton, coincidentally as I believe, brother-in-law of one of the Liberal MPs out there was able to kickstart it. Let's say that it makes its way to Ontario. So if the OPP aren't going to be able to assist with this, if the Toronto Police aren't going to be able to assist with this, how are people How are these guns supposed to be reclaimed? And assuming they're not, what's the expectation in terms of the police services, both OPP and Toronto, to then enforce the fact that there's going to be Canadians out there that don't participate in the gun buyback program and are in possession of these now restricted firearms?
Sounds like a nightmare to me, and I don't quite know the answer to it. I know that community policing, having good relationships with law-abiding citizens, is the only way police officers can effectively do their jobs. If the regular citizens that are law-abiding, going about their daily lives, don't trust the police or have bad interactions with the police, that's a nightmare scenario for us. We need public support and trust in order to be effective in what we're doing. And the last thing I would want to see my members doing is going to lawful gun owners' homes. And I guess I don't know how it would play out. Like, are there search warrants? How are we doing this? We don't know where they are. If anybody knows about firearms, a lot of these, they're trying to move from a non-restrictive category to a prohibited category. That means non-restrictive. We don't know where they are, how many there are, who has them. Because they're a non-restricted firearm, hunting, target shooting rifles. These aren't, as described often, some sort of military weapon. They're just regular firearms. So it's really a nightmare scenario. And if that were to come to Toronto, my job would be to represent my members and make sure they have whatever direction it would be, because we do not want to have bad interactions with good, honest citizens. We just want to focus on the bad guys and the criminals, not on the law-abiding citizens who happen to have a firearm because they're a hunter or target shooter or collector.
Well, and I wouldn't envy the Toronto Police Services in that scenario, because should that eventuality occur, now the Toronto Police are in this position where you have these repeat violent offenders constantly being let out on bail that you're having to chase after and apprehend to keep the community safe. And now you're going to have this expectation from the Liberal government and the public safety minister that you're going to be enacting the law on these lawful gun owners that have not surrendered their weapons under the gun buyback program. So there's going to be this issue of, do I protect the community, or do I go to a lawful gun owner's home to seize their weapon and potentially put them under arrest? That must be a scenario that nobody in the Toronto Police Services wants to be in that situation.
No, we want to protect victims. We want to, in the end, people become police officers. They want to arrest the bad guy. That's what they want to do, right? We want to go arrest the bad guys. We want to protect innocent people. There is a lot of violence going on in this city right now. And like I said, I'm happy that the municipality, the City of Toronto, is actually reinvesting in policing. So we're starting to see a little bit of the payback on that. We're starting to see response times go down, some crime indices go down, but that's because of that investment. But to divert gang investigators, homicide investigators, frontline officers from that type of work to seizing lawful guns is just insanity. And first, I don't even know how it would be done. So we're going to see how it goes. I mean, there is no plan that I know of right now. And doing no offense, some small town out in Cape Breton, and I've been out there, it's beautiful. Some small town out in Cape Breton is not trying to deal with 3 million people in the city of Toronto and how many lawful gun owners there are here. It's a completely different scenario.
Now, a jurisdiction that you may or may not be familiar with, Hamilton, there was a case recently where a resident had multiple security cameras up outside of his home, and the cameras are facing the sidewalk and the streets, and has been documented that his footage has actually aided police in investigations. There is a bylaw in Hamilton that doesn't really get enforced, but it was enforced in this case, where he was actually served to be a requirement to take all of those security cameras down, as they're not allowed to be pointing in a public space. But this raises the broader question: okay, what about dash cams? What about doorbell cameras? What about all of these things? Because technically, if you look at the bylaw, all of that is in violation of that bylaw. So not asking you to comment on the bylaw itself, but do you agree that it's a good idea, especially within the environment that we're in, with the increase in violent crime and the increase in home invasions, that Canadians should be allowed to have these security systems as almost a a neighborhood safety net to be able to monitor the safety in the surrounding area of their neighbors?
They do. I have them. It's on my phone right here, right? I can go view the security camera at my home. I think it does two things. Number one, when you see security cameras at a home, it's proven that bad guys will say, uh-oh, I'm on camera. Maybe that's not the home I'm going to break into. No different than, the beware of dog sign on your front of your house. Like, there's a Rottweiler in there. I'm not breaking in. So cameras are a very good crime prevention tool, right? To have, this is not the house to break into, but the evidence that's gathered from cameras is amazing. My wife is going to be starting at the homicide squad in Toronto on Tuesday. It'll be her first day down there. And I can tell you, when they're involved in those type of complex investigations, they canvass all neighborhoods, and there is always, or not always, almost always, great evidence that's captured on camera. I mean, that bylaw, I'm not familiar with it, but if the camera's in a public, I get if it's pointing into someone's home or something like that, but if it's pointing out to the street, I mean, I can take my camera and walk down any street and film it at any time. It's a public space. So they are a very effective crime prevention tool and really help us when investigating criminal offenses to try and track where people have gone, the identity, vehicles they may have used. So yeah, I think it's a great crime prevention tool for people to put into their homes.
And lastly, what would your message be to Canadians that maybe don't have a lot of trust in law enforcement these days for whatever reason? Maybe it's because of something they saw on social media. Maybe it's because they misunderstand the role of the police in exercising the law. What would your message be to Canadians?
Yeah, what a great question. I would say that the vast majority of the members of the Toronto Police Service and police officers across Canada are good, honest, hardworking people that truly care about keeping the community safe, protecting victims, and arresting bad guys. That's really what they want to do. We're human beings. We make mistakes. We're under an immense amount of scrutiny. We talk about video. Everything we do is on camera. And if a camera were to follow any of us around all day, of course we make mistakes. And those are highlighted because they're newsworthy stories when a police officer makes a mistake or people think they've made a mistake. But we're good, honest, hardworking people that really want to keep the communities safe, and that we can only do that if we have the trust of the public behind us, that believe that we're out there really trying to make a difference. And really, in the end, we want everybody to have healthy and safe neighborhoods. We want to go about our lives. We want to be able to do the things we enjoy. We want to take our kids to the soccer field or the baseball diamond. We want to go see the Jays hopefully win the World Series. You want to just enjoy your life without the fear of crime, and that we're out there really trying to do our best. And sometimes split-second decisions are really tough to make, and it's a lot easier for an armchair quarterback to slow that video down and dissect every decision. But we're good, honest, hardworking people trying to do our best.